focus is more on neurological problems, mobility problems, physical therapy problems, and sleep. We sleep about 1/3 of our life, and it's like a big elephant in the room and nobody thinks about it and we take it for granted. The reason is, if you identify and treat sleep apnea early in life, it will definitely have an impact on your child's overall development, cognition, learning. The point of initial treatment of any disease is survival. Once we go beyond survival, we want to have a quality of life. Once you have quality of life, you can see how productive you can make that individual. Even though an individual is wheelchair bound, I think there is a great opportunity for that person to be productive and be part of society. I think anything which limits your intellectual ability to function, learn, any disease which can affect should be screened and should be treated, because like any other child without any other comorbid conditions can have sleep apnea and have development problems. Similarly, children with mild dysplasia can have that. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about sleep, how sleep is important. I'm also going to talk about sleep apnea and some of the sleep problems which see in children as such, but particularly in children with mild dysplasia. So, what is sleep? I think it's a question it's very hard to answer in one go. So, people use multiple things to describe a group of events. So, it's a behavioral state of reduced consciousness. When you say reduced consciousness, you are unresponsive to the environment when you are actually sleeping. But that's not the. It is reversible. Unlike a patient who's dead or in coma, which is sometimes irreversible, you can wake up a patient from sleep. It's homeostatic. Homeostatic is a term used to describe sleep pressure. For example, the longest you are awake, the more sleepier you can be. The more you sleep, the less sleepier you can be. For example, you don't sleep for 24 hours, your sleep pressure builds up. That is your homeostatic drive. So after a certain time, I think people cannot stay awake forever, right? If you stay awake, say for 3 days, 4 days, just absolutely no sleep, you will die. There are experiments where if they keep the mice awake for more than 36 to 48 hours, it dies. So you need to sleep. So it's a homeostatic. And it has a species-specific position to sleep. I cannot sleep standing, but horse can sleep standing, right? So we have a specific position. You have to lie down to sleep. Similarly, there is a giraffe. You can see here. Birds sleep like this. Dolphins. Dolphins have a very interesting sleep. They have half of their brain sleeps while half of the brain is awake. Because while they are living in water, you have to come up to take the breath, right? If you sleep, you cannot come up. So dolphins sleep with half of their brain, also the whales. So they go, half of their brain is awake, they are swimming and coming up, and half of the brain sleeps. So that's a part of the evolution. So this is a little bit of an interesting concept for you to know about. Like, we take sleep for granted, but imagine if that mechanism fails, this everything is done. So why sleep is important? It is important for multiple reasons. So what is the function of sleep? To be true, nobody exactly knows what is the reason for sleep. We know what happens before sleep. But these are some of the proposed important action of sleep. Restorative. Body tissue restoration occurs during non-REM sleep. So basically, to understand sleep, there are two types of sleep. REM sleep and non-REM sleep. REM sleep is your dream sleep. That's when you dream, right? In adults, about 20 to 25% of our sleep is REM sleep or dream sleep. It occurs during the latter part of the night. So when you wake up from dream, not nightmare, dream, you feel like it's much more towards like 3, 4 o'clock or earlier in the morning. Night terrors and all those things happen much earlier in the child, like 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, when you have much of a non-REM sleep. So it helps brain tissue restoration. It's like it's a motor vehicle which is going on, and you turn off the engine and allow it to rest. Sleep helps the maintenance of the neuronal network and sympathetic integrity. So the brain is functioning, and sleep is also an active stage. In sleep, the brain is working, but working in a way to develop or restore its energy, and also develop a tuning of the nerve connection. awake, you tend to kind of, your heart is racing, beating at a particular rate, you're breathing at a particular rate, you're talking, you're thinking, you're walking, so you conserve a lot of energy. When you sleep, your heart rate goes down to the baseline, your blood pressure goes down to the baseline, your temperature is much more regulated, you're not walking around, so extra energy is conserved. It helps, especially in children, the growth occurs. That's the reason children sleep longer, because they can conserve that energy for their growth. And as we grow less because our growth reaches maximum by 18 years, then we don't need to sleep that much, so that we don't need to conserve that energy. Learning. In REM sleep, whatever you learn, it needs to be consolidated and formed into memory, and that's happened during REM sleep. And for that reason, sleep deprivation results in poor memory. Anything which fragments the sleep will lead to learning difficulties, memory problems. So that's important, that what we learn needs to form a memory, so that there's a short-term memory and a long-term memory, and that consolidation happens during sleep. So it's important that you get a good amount of sleep. Thermoregulation, I talked about body temperature regulation. So when we sleep, actually the body temperature drops by a degree, and the minimum temperature is at around 4 o'clock in the morning. If somebody wakes up and just feel yourself nap, and you feel like your body is actually cold, and that internal clock is going on. And there is a whole different talk about that, about your circadian clock and internal clock, why that happens, what happens if you lose that drive. That's when people develop diseases, hypertension, diabetes, and all those things. So it's a reason that why things go down. And it's considered like a detoxifying your body. Take away all the toxins when you sleep. So these are some of the functions. I'm not telling you the functions. And we don't know exactly what else it does. We know when you don't sleep or you sleep poorly, you have problems. It can vary. An individual, there is a great variability between individuals' duration of sleep and the symptoms what they develop sleep deprivation. So there is a great variability. So this is another graph I want to show you. There are some audiences here who are babies, and some patients are themselves adults. So this is age of the patients, first month of life, few months of life, 1 to 2 years, up until 85 years. This is the total daily sleep requirement. Okay? So a baby, a first month baby, almost sleeps, does nothing, right? Blinks and sleeps, So you sleep about 16 hours. And here, the orange is your REM sleep I'm talking about. And blue is your non-REM sleep. When baby is born, you have 50% of your sleep REM sleep, and 50% of the sleep is non-REM sleep. As we grow older, the duration of sleep from 16 hours up until adulthood, it's about almost 8 hours to 7 hours. So as you grow older, most of the adults who are working like us sleep about 7.5 hours. Some people 8, some people sleep 6 and they function fine. But teenagers definitely need more sleep, between 9 to 10 hours. That's very important. What happens here? Your amount of non-REM, the purple line doesn't change a lot. Amount of your REM sleep decreases. You need more REM sleep when you are a child, young. That's when your development, memory, neuronal pruning, and synaptic integrity occurs. So it's very important that sleep is important for children and adults. I'm not telling that it's less important in older people, but the amount of REM sleep is much less as we grow older. And remember, most of the elderly population who are 70s and 80s, they sleep 5.5 and 6 hours. I know you must be going to your grandparents and visiting them. They are up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and they're ready to go. I mean, not that they're tired today, but at the physiology is that you don't need that much. And that's where the discrepancy happens. If you don't know what is normal, then you don't know what is abnormal. So it's important to identify how much is normal for a person and treat based on that. And if you try to give an elderly person sleep medications because she's sleeping only 6 hours and she's waking up in the morning, has nothing to do, then you're probably going to drug her with medication. So it's important that you put the realistic expectations, because some of the elderly patients go to bed, say 8:30, wake up at 2 o'clock, and they say, I cannot go back to bed, and they have already met their limit of 6 hours. So I'm just telling you how important it is. Like a kid who goes to bed at 7 o'clock and wakes up at 6 o'clock, that the duration of the sleep is definitely an age limiting. So this is an interesting poll which came from National Sleep Foundation. The first line is this is the 6th grade, right? Sorry, this is not very clear. This is the grade of child or the school goes, the grade of the patient, like from 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And the first line here is, what is the national average a child goes to bed? Okay? So a 6th grader on an average, this is national, there are outliers, okay? Goes to bed on an average about 9:24 p.m. or 9:30. Okay? A 12th grader on an average nationally goes to bed at 11. The second line is school start time. In the middle school, early high school, the school starts at 8 o'clock. As you come more towards high school, in fact, the school starts earlier. That's another problem. Okay. Number 3. What time the child leaves home to go to school? Third line. Most of the 6th graders leave at 7:30, and high school or 12th graders leave much early, 7 to 7:14. So again, that's another problem. So, what is wake up time? Okay. So you see, this is the bedtime, wake up time. You're waking up at a 6:42 at 6th grader. You're waking up at 6:30 in the 2nd grader. So imagine you are going to bed at 9:30 and waking up at 6:30. You're getting about 9 hours of sleep for a 6th grader. You need about 10 hours. That's okay, isn't it? What about these teenagers here? Going to bed at 11, waking up at 6:30. 7 or less than 7 hours of sleep sometimes. And this is an average, okay? So a teenager needs typically 9 hours of sleep, and even 2 hours of sleep accumulated over a period of months and months and months can actually affect their learning. So some of the learning difficulties what we see are purely just related because of sleep, not the ability of the child to do well in the school, just the kid is not getting enough sleep. So you may not necessarily have to have a child who is falling asleep in the class to have learning difficulties. You may just need a subtle sleep deficiency enough to cause difficulties with learning. So again, on an average, a 12th grader gets about 6.9 hours of sleep compared to a 6th grader who gets about 8.4, and they're both less. And that partly to be blamed is the technology these days, television, sugary drinks around the bedtime, stimulating the kid, and parents' own bedtimes. There are families who feel it is cool to stay awake late, and everybody goes to bed late, and everybody wakes up late. They have to work late, but the kid has to wake up early because the kid has to go to school. So there is a discrepancy between sleep time and wake up time. So sleep problems may result from inadequate sleep duration per age, that's called sleep restriction, inadequate sleep quality, that's called sleep fragmentation, inappropriate sleep timings because of your poor sleep habits, going back to late and waking up early, excessive daytime sleepiness, hypersomnia. These are kids who have excessive sleep needs and they tend to sleep at odd times and affecting their learning opportunities. Sleep deprivation and its effect. Optimal sleep duration and the capacity to tolerate sleep deprivation varies. Again, you may have people, outliers. I sleep 6 hours, I'm perfectly fine, I'm an A+ student and never had problems. On the other hand, there are kids who are sleeping like 12 hours, but they're still falling asleep. So there are outliers, you have to know what these are. But on an average, definitely varies. There are short sleepers and long sleepers. So exactly, everybody has a 7-size shoes and a 8-size shoes, so it can match and vary. There are lots who wake up early, and there are night owls. Most of the teenagers wake up. There is a very degree of effect of environment on sleep, especially the light and the electronic media. The iPads, the iPhones, the technology, the texting. Most of the children, especially the high school children, have one or all of the devices, including laptop, TV into their room. So there is so much thing going on, social networking is going on, so there is hardly enough, once the brain is stimulated at night, to shut down this equipment, it still takes time to wind down and sleep. Unless you text to the point you literally cannot stay awake. That is your homeostatic drive. Like you texted or you were uncomfortable to go over and literally you just fall asleep. So, or if you want to go to bed at regular time, you really need to wind down these activities at least an hour before bed. That's important. There's an internal clock in the body which tells us to sleep. So people in Boston go to bed between 10 and 10:30, wake up at 6 o'clock, compared to people in California go to bed at their 10:30, not at Boston time, right? So everybody is at the internal clock, and that depends on your sunlight and all those things. So it's important that we know the light, how it affects your daytime behavior in nighttime sleep. Light is very important, especially in the sun. When there was no electricity, when people lived in caves, they used to wake up at sunrise, go to bed at sunset. There was no insomnia. Now, actually there are studies. Actually, people have visited Amazon. Some of the tribes who have not been exposed to the civilizations, there is no insomnia. We just go to bed, sunset, and wake up. So this is all. This is a modern condition. All the things what we do. So effect of sleep deprivation, sleep accommodation. I talked about can cause daytime sleepiness, tiredness, fatigue, neurocognitive behavioral learning, memory problems, ADD-like symptoms. I see a lot of kids who is hyperactive, difficulty to focus, not learning, jumping off the roof. Parents say, the teachers calls the parents and say your kids probably has ADHD. Goes to the pediatricians, wants them on stimulants, put them on stimulants. Imagine this patient has sleep deprivation. Actually needs sleep or some sleep disturbances, needs correction. And the kid is presenting like ADD. Behaves like something looks like quacks and behaves like duck is not duck necessarily. So goes to the pediatrician. Everybody says, oh, you're hyper, you're jumping. Yeah, you look like ADD. You put them on stimulants. What you do is you're actually giving something to make this kid alert, and the kid is sleep deprived. You're giving like somebody like us drinking a lot of caffeine. Like at some point they will be giving. And I see a lot of patients who come with these complaints. And nowadays, ADD Foundation requires that every patient who has a diagnosis of ADHD, you have to rule out sleep disorders before you start them on stimulants. So especially that's very important. So that in teenagers, impulse control behavior. If you're tired, sleep deprived, you can get angry, drowsy driving, risk for accident. So that's the thing. What happens when you're tired? You stay, I don't know. When I was a resident, when I used to do a night call, the next day morning, I used to feel like eating sweets, I don't know, like just to go and get a donut or something and get coffee, because I just need some energy. So when that's one night, I did a call, the next day I go and sleep. I don't feel the next day like that. These kids are sleep deprived on a day-to-day basis. They make unhealthy life choices. It's more of a sugary and high calorie diet. And when you're tired, you're less active. How can you exercise when you're tired, right? So that leads to obesity. And that's the major problem we're facing in these days. You're stuck in a chicken and egg situation. If you have more obesity, then you develop sleep apnea and stuff like that. Your sleep gets much screwed up. So it's very important that how you treat those things, and one thing leads to another one in this situation. And obviously, untreated sleep problems or sleep disorder breathing problems leads to cardiovascular difficult outcomes. It's same thing in adults. Hypertension, arrhythmias, cardiac MR. Same thing in pediatrics. You don't see it. MR in children, but you see hypertension. We are seeing children with higher blood pressures who are otherwise completely normal. This is just because of this disturbances. So we are seeing hypertension at an earlier age now than we saw many years ago because of the obesity, because of their sleep deprivation and all the things. Sleep hygiene. So some of the things we always have to focus is these things. Make sure that you don't have irregular sleep times, napping, play is not good, inappropriate sleep timings, lack of routine for children. Always routine helps to establish what is normal. And use of excessive caffeine for teenagers and young adults. So always parents have to keep an eye on the sleep. I mean, I'm not telling you that 8 o'clock, like a military, then go to bed at 9 o'clock. So always there is a room for a little bit of negotiation, but you have to have that routine built into that. So there is not a huge difference between weekend schedule, holiday schedules, daytime schedules. So you are not jet lagged between weekdays and weekends. So now, with the background about what is sleep, why it is important, what is the duration of sleep, and what are the problems with sleep. Now, why is evaluation of sleep important in children with minor dysfunction? Like, why do I care about it? So, two things. Meningomyelocele or myelomeningocele, whatever it is, it affects the spine basically, right? It affects your spine. Some of the myelomeningocele are associated with hearing malformations. That is, your herniation of the part of the brain called cerebellum or hindbrain through the foramen magnum, which is the opening of the base of the skull where the spinal cord passes. And it herniates and puts pressure on the brainstem area. It puts pressure on the brainstem area where we have important centers located, like breathing centers, heart rate, all those things. So when the pressure occurs on that area, it causes breathing issues. Type 2 Chiari is typically only seen in children with spinal bifida. Most of these children develop hydrocephalus, and there is a varying degree of symptoms. So I can talk to you some of the symptoms, how they can present, what happens. So this is your brain structure, this is your cerebellum, this is the part of the brain I'm talking about. So you see this is the skull, this yellow part. This is the opening in the skull where this brain stem becomes a spinal cord, right? So this is your first neck vertebrae. So part of this brain, it should herniate here. Normally it should not herniate. So normally it should be like this, the brain is sitting like this, nicely like a small cauliflower. Here, this portion herniates. So what happens is, as a consequence, you see this herniates. This is the part of the, you see a bony area here. This pressure, this is the area where you have your breathing centers located. It puts pressure on that area because it hinges around the bony margin, and that's when you have problems. So patients who have only myelomalleolocele, which is only on the spine, they have some other issues of the sleep. We'll talk a little bit later. But patients with myelomalleolocele who have associated Chiari malformations are the ones who have more of breathing problems or sleep-related breathing problems. If you have only myelomalleolocele, you can have scoliosis, you can have reduced lung volume, you can have problems with, like, because of the restrictive lung component. But here, your brain is not sending signals for you to breathe. And the nerves from this area also supply your vocal cord, which is your voice box. If these are affected, your vocal cords, when you breathe in, it has to open up so that the air can go in, it contracts. So it almost pushes air, so air cannot enter in, and you can hear snoring. And most of these patients end up with tonsils removal, adenoids removal. It doesn't help them a lot. It helps a little bit, but not a lot. So that's one of the important. So again, I want to show that you understand this associated Chiari is very important, which can affect the breathing in children. So as I mentioned, some of the problems include Chiari malformation can be associated isolated. Like there are a lot of adults walking around who has Chiari malformations. They never knew they had Chiari malformations unless something else led to the diagnosis. But patients with myelodysplasia with Chiari can also have these symptoms like vocal cord weakness, or they can present with stridor. They can go to the ENT clinic, or a baby has a stridor, thought it was a croup or something, went to the ENT, they treat it, and it comes back and back and back. So every time the kids have stridor, so if a baby comes to me with recurrent stridor, one of the things I always think about is it a Chiari malformation. Dysphagia of aspiration. So the muscles of swallowing, the same nerve supplies that. So if there is a pressure, there is a discoordination of the swallowing. So they can aspirate, they can choke, they have difficulty swallowing, they are poor feeders. So these patients can develop aspiration and slow. So that's one thing I think about. Respiratory muscle weakness. Because of the pressure on the nerve supplying the muscles of the respiration, they can take shallow breathing. Scoliosis, we talked about. Because the Chiari can cause syringomyelia, there is a dilatation of the cerebrospinal canal, and that can lead to damage to the nerves, and the muscles of the back become weak, the spine loses the support and can get curvature in the spine. And because of that, lung becomes squished inside and the lung volume decreases and develop poor lung itself. So there are multiple reasons they can have problems. And now, so what are the sleep disorders with myelodysplasia which are important? Sleep disorder breathing, abnormal breathing during sleep. Circadian sleep disorders these are the issues where your internal body clock doesn't match the external time zone. So you are living in Boston, but your internal body clock is in California. So that's kind of disorders like night owl. Restless leg syndromes, I think people can identify with that. You doesn't necessarily have to have Chiari to have restless legs, but severe restless legs resistant to treatment can be because of Chiari malformation. Periodic movements of sleep. Typically, restless legs happens while you are awake in bed before falling asleep. The periodic movements of sleep is also restless legs, but you're actually sleeping, but your legs are still twitching. You can, I don't know, people, the partner sometimes they're kicking or twitching, but they're sleeping. So that's the periodic movements of sleep. Parasomnias are nightmares, night terrors. So any of these things can precipitate parasomnia, like a secondary parasomnia. So people think, oh, the kid has a night terror, but the night terrors are recurrent, severe, multiple. So you have to rule out, is there an underlying cause to do these things? Once in a while, nightmare, night terrors in a teen, in a toddler or a young child is normal. But if they're recurrent and severe and persistent, then you have to think about, is there something else which is causing it? So central apneas, obstructive apneas, mixed apneas, hyperventilation is shallow breathing, bradypnea is slow breathing. So normally, as an adult, we breathe about 12 to 14 times per minute, maybe 12 times when we sleep. Compared to a baby, an infant, breathes about 40 to 50 times per minute. Right? Because the lung volume is small, you have to take multiple times breathing to get enough oxygen. If we are big, our lung volume is enough, so we can take a half a liter of air in and out each time. We don't need to breathe so much. So we can breathe 12 times per minute. In bradypnea, they're only breathing 4 to 5 times per minute. So we have a respiratory pacemaker. Remember, our heart rate is about 80 to 72 per minute. So there is a cardiac pacemaker in the heart. So we have a respiratory pacemaker in the brain stem which keeps that rate regular. So that can be affected. You can have a shallow breathing. And some of these things, we had one kid with Chiari who had this plump. The kid used to just hold the breath in expiration until it becomes completely blue and passes off. Could not take breath in. It may last for a minute, sometimes half a minute, and the kid can have hypoxemic seizures and have sudden death. So this is extremely rare, but it can happen, occur in this situation. These are the symptoms we talked about: snoring, apneas, restless sleep, fragmented sleep, night sweats, bedwetting. Kid who was completely hot, like toilet trained, suddenly starts wetting in the bed, can be a problem, can be a symptom of sleep apnea. Otherwise, healthy children. Mouth breathing, frequent night terrors, suddenly after snoring. And daytime, they can have sleepiness, difficulty with attention, hyperactivity, learning difficulties, and high blood pressure. So I have seen young children having the blood pressures at a higher limit of normal. That not, like if you don't treat them, these are likely to develop hypertension at an early age as an adult. Like typically people develop hypertension into their 40s and 50s. You may have a 20-year-old or 25-year-old with hypertension. I'm not telling you that all the hypertensions are because of sleep apnea. There can be familial reasons and other kidney problems and can cause hypertension, but this is something which can be easily treatable or preventable as a child so that they don't develop as an adult at an earlier age. So what are the causes of sleep apnea in patients with Chiari? The most common is again adenotonsillar hypertrophy. Like any other child, they have large tonsils and adenoids, so that can be there. Nasal allergies. I talked about the paralysis of the vocal cord can also obstruct the breathing and cause sleep apnea. I have seen, because of the reduced activity in children who are on wheelchair, there is a clinical obesity, and also there is excessive fat deposition on the neck and the chest can causing sleep apnea. So it's important that the population we treat, we also pay attention to their weight and the body mass index, not just pure weight, and the muscle weaknesses in the fat. So these are the big tonsils. You can see this almost. This is a uvula. This is swollen because the kid was snoring so much and it is swollen up. So this kid has hardly any space to breathe. Imagine the nose gets blocked up because of the allergies. There's hardly any space to breathe. So when you don't breathe, what happens? You don't sleep, right? Because if you can't breathe, you will not. Even imagine when you have allergies and you have difficulty breathing, you will have a poor sleep. And imagine this kid would have. So this kid has severe sleep apnea and need to get the tonsils out. So that's the number one thing we see in pediatrics is intermittent pauses, restless sleep, crankiness, snoring, stopping to breathe at night, and parents suddenly run into the room. I did not hear snoring, they suddenly paused. What happened? So those are pretty common in children. So consequences. So I think this slide summarizes what can happen because of sleep apnea patients. Neurocognitive, which we all care a lot for children because we want to make them as productive and as effective as possible. ADD-like symptoms, memory problems, decreased intelligence, and poor school performances are the first things to get affected. Subsequently, you can have hyperactivity. Some of the teenagers can have anxiety, depression. I'm not telling that every depression is because of sleep apnea, but untreated sleep apnea can lead to depression because you feel gloomy, you feel tired, you just don't feel like good enough, so you can get secondary depression. Obesity, because I talked to you about sleep deprivation leads to leptin resistance and increased hormone called ghrelin, which increases the appetite and craving for all the sugary food. So it can result in obesity. Just sleep deprivation itself can lead to obesity. So the better you sleep, the less obese you are. Cardiovascular problems, we talked about this, hypertension and atherogenesis. Metabolic, insulin resistance, lipid abnormalities. Others, like, you tend to get more infections because your immunity comes down. In children, they can have ear infections, sinus infections, bronchitis, recurrent colds, so those things. So it's important that it affects the entire body. So sleep studies. We do sleep studies in children, including babies, up until 21 plus in our hospital, which is predominantly a pediatric hospital, but we can do sleep studies at any age. What does sleep study do, and when do we do sleep studies? We do sleep studies to assess breathing during sleep. Basically, the sleep studies is not assessing your sleep per se, it's assessing multiple things. The main reason we do sleep studies is to assess your breathing during sleep. Assess oxygen and carbon dioxide. And sometimes we put these kids on CPAP or BiPAP. We want to make sure that the settings are appropriate. We do the sleep studies then. If the patient is having a lot of twitchiness or restlessness during sleep, we do sleep studies to find out how much is affected. And sometimes I get children's, the parents and the doctors are, the neurologists get confused. The kid wakes up at night, which seems like an apparent night terror, but I'm not sure. Could be seizures. So sometimes we want to differentiate some of the seizures called nocturnal frontal lobe epilepsy, or NFL also, whatever it is. So E, then FE. These children can be very confusing and they can present with sleepwalking, some arm stretching. So these are weird, bizarre movements which can lead, and people have treated them as night terrors. In fact, these are seizures. So we do sleep studies to differentiate whether it is a seizure or a night terror. So these are the common indications for doing sleep studies. If there is a baby not sleeping through the night, or somebody is going to bed and mom like want to go to pee, they want to drink a glass of water, like night time, those typicals we don't do sleep studies for them. So these are the common indications for sleep studies. So we assess abnormal breathing, abnormal brain waves, waking up, oxygen, heart rate, leg movements, all those things we do. We measure a lot of parameters. So this is a sleep study, this is the brain waves. This is your flow in the nose. There is a snore microphone here. You can see this like the breathing sounds and small snoring. And these are the movements of the chest, abdomen, and the summary bells. And this is your oxygen. So normally when you're breathing, your breathing is nice and smooth. Your air is flowing through your nostrils, and you're making your effort. This is a normal sleep study. So now compared to this one, you see there is no air flowing into the nose. The patient is breathing here. There's an effort, but there is no flow. That means the patient is obstructed, right? The patient is like the tonsils or the tongue is falling back. Air is not moving out of the nose, but the patient is trying to breathe. So this is obstructed happening. You see the oxygen from 94 goes down to 88. So this is kind of a roller coaster ride. The oxygen is in and out, and all through the night it happens like this. Just like that. Breathing, normal breathing, obstruction. Normal breathing, obstruction. Snoring, then obstruction. Snoring and obstruction. So this continues. That affects the sleep quality. Sleep gets very fragmented. The roller coaster ride of oxygen leads to complete inflammation and subsequent effect on your brain regarding development, and ultimately, if left untreated, you can develop hypertension, pulmonary hypertension, and all of them. So this is bad for your brain, for your heart, for your body. So treatment, again, this summarizes the treatment. So basically, in adults as well as young adults, weight loss, alcohol for older people like more than 21, avoidance because alcohol relaxes your muscles, can lead to worsening of sleep apnea. Position, if you sleep on your back, your sleep apnea tends to be worse, so try to sleep on the side. Treatment for babies, children, or not babies. I mean, for children, if there is a lot of nasal allergies, we use medications to treat that, so the snoring gets better. Sometimes the adenoids shrink. Surgical treatment, you can do tonsillectomy, removal of those things. If they don't respond to this, we put them on CPAP. Sometimes, if there is a very high aspirate, we put some maxillary expanders. We put dental devices, and sometimes we have to do a jaw surgery if the jaw is very small. To bring because your tongue is attached to the lower jaw, your jaw is smaller, the tongue falls back on the throat and causes obstruction. And some of the patients need dramatic surgery. So there is a lot of treatment for sleep apnea, and you have to carefully select the patients. Which patients are going to benefit from which one. And the surgeries are always the last a desperate option if nothing else works and the patient has severe OSA. So now coming to this one, central apneas. This is one of the most important reasons we see children in our myelodysplasia program, the sleep program. They can have central apneas or hyperventilation. And as I mentioned, because of patients with myelodysplasia, if they have Chiari, they can have central apneas. Just pure Spina Bifida necessarily doesn't have any Chiari malformation or anything. They don't have central apneas. It can be breath holding spells, pauses, or shallow breathing. So now, if you remember the previous sleep study I showed, the patient is not making any effort here. There is a pause in breathing, takes 1 or 2 breaths, pause in breathing, takes 2 breaths, pause in breathing, takes 2 breaths. So these are all central apneas. So this also affects the sleep quality. That also, because of the not breathing, oxygen tends to go down. These are called the pain. The brain is not sending signals to breathe. Pause for like 20 seconds, and then take 2 breaths, and pause again. So this continues through the night. So again, this is because of the herniation affecting the centers which affect our breathing. So how do you diagnose them? Chiari malformations are like, it's an interesting thing how we diagnose. Accidental MRI for some other reason. So somebody had a headache, or somebody had a seizure, something was being done, and they did an MRI, incidentally they find a Chiari. So that's it. Aspiration. So I see a lot of kids who are aspirating from a respiratory standpoint, and we do all the evaluations and everything is negative. And the kid needs to outgrow aspiration within a few months. It's not outgrowing, it's persisting. And then we always scan the brain to make sure that you're not missing Chiari. We may diagnose that. Headaches, sometimes people do MRI. So a lot of times patients with Chiari come with snoring. They're snoring, and you do sleep studies thinking that you will find obstructive sleep apnea. They end up having central sleep apnea. So whenever I see access to central sleep apnea in the sleep study, irrespective of who referred me and why they referred me, I always advise them to get an MRI. I'll tell you a story next, like a kid whom I saw for this reason. So this is a child who was about 9 years old who came to my clinic, not to my clinic actually, went to the ENT clinic because you see these red things, these are all snoring. He was having a loud snore and parents could not sleep. And this was going for a long time, and the kid was not able to focus in the class, having attention issues. Ultimately decided to talk to the pediatrician who referred them obviously to ENT, thinking that there are adenoids and tonsils. So ENT saw this kid. They said there's no adenoids, no tonsils, but you say this kid snores, let me do a sleep study. So they do a sleep study, and I get to read the sleep study because I'm a sleep physician. It comes to me on a Friday, 4 o'clock in the evening. Always these kind of things I get it in the time when everybody's like doing on vacation. So I see this kid, like for example, this is a 2 minutes epoch. That is the data capture is for 2 minutes. You see 1 breath, 2, 3, 4. This is 1 minute, this is 1 minute. So the kid is having only 4 breaths per minute. That's bradycardia, okay? And the kid was having drop in saturation upward to 80%, 78%, 78%, and 3% could be fractured. And the CO2, carbon dioxide, is 52. Normally it has to be 45. 52. So high CO2, low oxygen, you have the diagnosis. So I called the ENT surgeon who was on vacation. So then I said like, what we should do. And then I said like, how to talk with him. So we get the cell number, contact that person who was in Arizona on vacation. I said, this kid has severe bradycardia. I suspect this patient has Chiari malformation. Once we diagnose this, it's even unsafe to leave it over a weekend. Imagine, sudden death is known in patients with Chiari. If you're playing around, if somebody hits the head, they can drop dead. Because as I told you, the heart center is located exactly next to the respiratory center, they can develop cardiac arrest right away. You can't even revive it. And there are a lot of kids who are like having these sudden deaths, tends to be Chiari kind of a patient. So we got this kid to the hospital, we put them on BiPAP. I told them, get a scan. Saturday morning we do the scan. This patient has same thing, Chiari malformation. You can see this is the base of the skull here. I don't know if you can see, this is a portion of the brain which is herniated here, and this is a kinking of the brain stem here, causing pressure on the brain stem. So the patient, I knew this would have Chiari, it turned to have Chiari. And there is, because of pressure, there is a serigomyelia. The spinal cord, the fluid in the spinal cord is dilated because the drainage of the spinal fluid is affected. And because of that, when we started doing neurological exam, the kid had nystagmus, had a chronic low-grade headache. The kid never felt better, so the quality of the life, the kid felt this is how we feel. The low-grade headache is the norm of life. And if you really did the complete neurological exam, had a great instability, So we called the neurosurgeon and said, like, we should repair this kid. The surgeon said, no, kid has just central apnea, no symptoms. I said, the kid is breathing 4 per minute when the kid sleeps. That's not normal. This kid can just, have something falls, you can lose this kid. And ultimately, after back and forth, they decided to take for surgery. They wanted to wait for a month or two. I said, no. Finally, they agreed. They repaired it, they took for surgery within 2 days. And the surgeon called me after that and said, glad we operated, because when they went and took the portion of the skull out, the herniated brain was necrotic. They have to chop the part of the brain because of the blood supply was being done and they had to do this thing. So again, a lot of times we think, oh, it's okay, it's not okay. The imaging can tell you certain things, but the sleep study was telling the big story. Breathing 3 to 4 times a minute during sleep is not normal. Your CO2 is pretty high. We went ahead and repaired this. We did the surgery, and I'm following this patient still, which is 2.5 years. I did a sleep study last week. This patient still has sleep apnea, which is 70% better. But if your initial baseline is very, very severe, 100 events per hour, you now have 20 events per hour. Normally you need to have 5 events per hour. It's still significant. So that means the portion of the brain which was pressing is already just genetic. There is some scarring in that area. We don't know how long it will take to outgrow, even if it outgrows. So the patient still has sleep apnea. So it's important that you think about the history. If doesn't things sound right, you really have to push for it and repair it. So the whole thing is you really have to push it and repair it, and don't wait until the patient really crashes and then try to fix it. So indication for decompression surgery is if you have a severe central apnea, like in this case, or shallow breathing, or low respiratory rate during sleep, as I mentioned, or sometimes, as I mentioned, these patients can have severe sleep apnea, severe. You do adenoids and tonsils removal, it doesn't help. It continues to snore. And those patients, because the vocal cord is getting paralyzed, so those patients can also benefit from removal of the port of the skull and brain. I'm going to show you that. So the decompression surgery is, you see this is a part of the skull here, and this is a herniation. What they do is they chop off this portion of the skull and take it out. And they stitch back the dura mater and everything. And this part of the brain, the skull is missing, and they put the skin back. So this removal of this will take the pressure out of this, pressing on from the foramen. So once that is done, and the pressure is relieved, so you will get better. But the scarring which has happened since the baby probably was born or much earlier in life will take some time to get better. There are patients who dramatically respond, that's great, and like this child I presented, will take probably several more years. So the kid is on fire still. So it's important to pick it up. So outcome, as I mentioned, both central and obstructive sleep apnea significantly improve on follow-up studies. In most of them they resolve, but some, as I mentioned, can persist. Surgery may possibly relieve the sleep apnea by relieving the brain compression and facilitating the CSF flow. So the syrinx which we saw has definitely gotten better in these patients, and the sensation is better, the headache has disappeared, the gait is better, the nystagmus or the twitchy eyes are getting better. So the kid is definitely doing better, but we need to continue monitoring this. So now, coming to restless legs and periodic movements. There are nerve fibers which come from the brain, go to the spinal cord, and then goes to the limbs. If somebody has a myelodysplasia or a spina bifida, which affects those long tracts coming from the brain and going to the limb, so your limb becomes very twitchy. So almost all the patients with myelodysplasia have periodic movements or restless legs. There are interesting case reports that, some of the young adults, like 20, 30, who had severe restless legs, as soon as in the evening, they relaxed, the leg starts itching, they did iron therapy, they did medications, nothing got better. Once you have an adult with severe restless legs, you should always scan their brain to make sure that you don't have TI. And there are 4 or 5 series where they did after treatment, they did not get better, they did the brain scanning, these patients had TI. So they can present with just restless legs. I'm not saying that every restless legs has TI, but they don't respond to treatment. They have severe restless legs and medications are not effective, then you should consider. So twitchiness is, some of the restlessness you appreciate when you're awake and you're falling asleep, but some happen when you fall asleep. You may not appreciate that I'm having it, your bed partner may appreciate it, or on the sleep study you can diagnose it, or it can affect your sleep and next day when you wake up, you just don't feel great. I slept 9 hours now, I still don't get that kind of a restful feeling when I wake up. So that can affect the quality of sleep. So it's very important and it can cause sleep fragmentation, as I mentioned about. So in children, how do you diagnose restless legs? It's very difficult, right? There is a criteria which the American Academy of Sleep Medicine developed for restless legs. It has to be irresistible urge to move your legs. When you move the legs, the symptoms should get relief. And when you stop moving, the symptoms should recur. So there's a very particular, and it happens before sleep onset and will last from several minutes to several hours, typically occurring in the lower limbs. But in children, how do you describe that? Some people may say, yeah, maybe your leg is hurting because you have growing pains, right? Or you're growing and you do some massage and you sit up. Some of the growing pains actually could be restless legs in children. And the most common reason for restless legs in children is iron deficiency. Anybody I'm talking about, any run of the mill kid, always a lot of iron deficiency, and I always tell pediatricians to focus on iron. But some of the children are smart, and if you really are not getting this, ask them to drop. They put these legs here, they feel this kind of weird sensation, and they feel the needles are picking their leg. Sometimes that influences the diagnosis. Actually, they are unable to describe it, but they can actually show on them. And even the parents can do that. So it's important that when you practice medicine in pediatrics, my friend told me that it's like a veterinary science, right? So most of the kids don't talk, and you really have to depend on parents' perception of that problem. Most of the time they are accurate, some of the times it's being off the back, and also the clinical examination. And sometimes you have the art of getting the history from the child in a way which makes sense. So this is one of the things we can help to identify and treat in children. So if a patient comes with hearing malformation, do I have to do a sleep study in them? This is a debate we've been having, because sleep apnea can be completely asymptomatic. If you have central apneas, if somebody is not sitting and watching you, even watching, you may not notice that the patient is pausing to breathe. So if somebody is snoring, yes, you can hear it, you can bring them to the clinic. If somebody is just not breathing, when you are sleeping in your room, how do you know the patient has central apnea? So I think we always try to, whenever somebody gets a new diagnosis with myelodysplasia and hearing, we try to establish one baseline sleep study to see if we need to do something. We need to treat it. Sometimes sleep apnea itself is an indication to do brain surgery, decompressive surgery. So because a lot of times surgeons say, oh, you're not symptomatic, come back in a year. Yes, I will come back in a year, provided I have a normal sleep study. If I don't have a normal sleep study, I need something to be done. So for that reason, we do. If symptoms are present, the PhD should be considered to confirm the diagnosis of sleep apnea. Yes, somebody is snoring, somebody noticed that he's not breathing, obviously you need to do those things. PhD or sleep study screening may be recommended for patients with asymptomatic hearing, CM, for incidentally on MRI. So there are a lot of MRIs being done. Patients say, oh, you have a type 1 questionable. If there's a lot of overcrowding in the posterior fossa, what they say, then you definitely have to get the sleep study done to make sure that they're not missing anything else. Patients with borderline herniation on MRI may also benefit from sleep study for additional corroborative evidence to direct the management towards either surgery or watchful aging. So if you do a decision to wait, you have to make sure that you're waiting on the right path. That at least the breathing is fine and not sitting on something which is like taking time off. Findings from our series, we did a surgery, we did a study, and we found that patients will have a very crowded posterior part of the brain, or the posterior fossa, tend to have more breathing issues with sleep. So delaying diagnosis and treatment may increase the risk of adverse neurocognitive events we talked about in the previous slides. So now the last few minutes of my talk will be on CPAP and BiPAP. This is the treatment for sleep apnea. Most of it applies to children who don't have hearing and have sleep apnea, also to adults who have sleep apnea, and also to children with hearing who have sleep apnea. So there are different types. CPAP is a continuous positive airway pressure. So the pressure delivered is only constant. If you say CPAP of 6 centimeters of water, the machine is delivering 6 centimeters constantly, whether you are breathing in or you are breathing out. BiPAP is a bi-level pressure. So when we write a prescription, we say 12 over 6. That means when you breathe in, the machine delivers 12 centimeters to give a little bit of extra push to your breathing, open up the lung. When you breathe out, it says you don't need 12 centimeters, so I'm going to reduce the pressure to 6 centimeters. So it machine automatically drops the pressure to 6 centimeters, so you don't feel like you're breathing against resistance. So it's much more friendly and helps to give you a better breath. For pure sleep apnea, we use CPAP. It acts like a pneumatic stent. Basically, your floppy airway opens up and you're breathing on your own. This one, if somebody has a weak muscle and they're unable to generate enough breath, they're having a shallow breathing. As soon as the machine senses, oh, the patient is starting breathing, it delivers air so that the patient gets a bigger breath and the machine is augmenting your breath. And that's the bi-level we do that. So if somebody has a shallow breathing, we use bi-level. If somebody has a pure central apnea, we use that. Obstructive apnea. If somebody has a central apnea, we use bi-level with a rate. When patient stops breathing, for example, that kid who was breathing at 4, I put him on BiPAP with a rate of 15. So patient will get 4 breaths from his own breath and about 11 breaths from the machine to set a rate of 15 to this thing. So that's how we calculate and we set up a rate for the patient so that the breathing represents the normal breathing. So there are some different modes about breathing at CPAP, BiPAP, and summer mode. It's out of the scope of this talk. But again, there's a lot more we can do for complex kind of apneas. Indication for BiPAP is significant obstruction, which is requiring very high CPAP. If somebody is requiring a CPAP of say 15, it may be like somebody is punching on your face. In that sense, you may be better off with a bi-level pressure. Central apnea and shallow breathing. If somebody has a severe central apnea and the surgeon see, you know what, right now there's a contraindication for surgery, I cannot do surgery, or you're waiting for surgery, you can use this as an intermediate until you fix the problem. Sometimes, as I mentioned, even after surgery, you may have enough residual disease, you may need to treat it. So in that situation, you may still need to use BiPAP until the kids are closed. This is the most important part, I think. In a child, you will be amazed that there are a lot of kids who are like 4 or 5 years sleep with CPAP. It's an art and it takes a lot of efforts. Unlike an adult clinic, they give CPAP and say go home. Where this, in pediatrics, we have to work with the parents. We have to first of all identify a proper fitting of the mask, like a proper shoe. Imagine if you have a tight shoe, you're going to get a shoe bite. Similarly, if you have a wrong mask, you're going to get a bite here, you're going to get a bruises and abrasions. And that's the number one reason. If there's a pain, the kid is not going to tolerate it. So get a good mask. Get a good seal. If there's a leak here, all the pressure goes out and can cause problem. Sometimes the pressure can go into the eyes and cause red eye. So you got to get a good seal. And then the patient has to get acclimatized. Like, imagine somebody puts a mask on your face on day 1 and asks you to sleep with that thing, you're not going to sleep it. So we ask the kid to play with the mask, to put the mask, and without connecting to the CPAP in the afternoon, so you get comfortable. And sometimes we just tell them to kind of connect it, not put the machine, just head care, and the kids can sleep with the mask without any pressure. So once the kid gets used to the sensation of the mask on the face while sleeping, then we start connecting pressure. We build up pressure from, say, if the patient needs 8, we start with like 4 per week, then 5, then 6, and then 8, so that there's a slow build up period. So it takes about a couple of weeks, sometimes a month, for us to get there. And definitely we get there provided the parents and everybody is making an effort in this situation. Skin irritation, aerophagia means you basically, whatever you're giving air, you go into the stomach, and the stomach bloats up, and the next day it's vomits because of that. So the reflux gets worse in some situations. So you have to work with that one. Sinus, sometimes the air can go into the sinuses and cause sinus headaches and sometimes recurrent sinusitis. If you don't use humidifier, it can cause dry mouth. So when you wake up, your mouth is very sticky and you feel like, like a bad breath in the morning. Sometimes the air leak from the mask can go into the eyes, can cause red eyes and stuff like that. So it's very important that you have those proper assessment. Sometimes you have to use a nasal mask, a full face, indicating nose and the mouth. Sometimes you use a nasal mask, but the patient is having mouth breathing. So you may have to use a chin strap to close the mouth during sleep. So there's a lot of things we tend to do with that one. The nasal pillows just sits in the nose for patients who cannot tolerate the mask. I'll show you some of the pictures. So this is a baby actually. This is a tiny mask which puts on the baby, and the baby, once the child appreciates that this mask and pressure in fact helps her to breathe better and sleeps better, believe me, you will tolerate it. It's just a matter of time. Doing it in a proper way. Because without that, airway gets collapsed and the kid cannot sleep. And if somebody is having a mouth breathing, you put this kind of a chin strap so that the mouth just shuts closed, so that you only breathe through the nose. These are the different masks we use in children. These are like a nasal mask, nasal mask, nasal mask. Even though this patient had facial abnormalities, you see you can identify a mask which can fit. Again, these are full face masks for adults. Nasal masks. These are nasal pillows. These are CPAP. And this is another child with a mask here. Sleeping, you can also sleep on your stomach. And there are special pillows these days available for the CPAP. You can use those. So typically when a patient falls asleep, we tell them to put the CPAP when you are almost ready to go to bed. And we put a ramp button. That means if you are a pressure of 8, it takes about 20 minutes to ramp up to the 8 so that you can fall asleep at a lower pressure. As soon as you fall asleep within 20 minutes, the pressure builds up to 8, which is a therapeutic pressure. Some of the times we use some sleep medications to help them to sleep initially and then we stop it. We maintain the schedules. Rather than glass half empty, we take glass half full. So even though you're tolerating 4 hours, that's great. Rather than you just tolerate 4 hours. So that's always a good approach. We work with the insurance companies. It sometimes can be a challenge to write letters and make sure that they get all the data. And we can monitor the data from the machine. And parents, whether they tell me, I can say exactly what time they wore the machine, what time they took off, how many times they took off in the night, and how many times they used for the next 30 days. And the machines are very smart. We can even monitor that remotely through Bluetooth technology. So we can monitor this. We can also say how much of the apneas are treated, how much apnea are not treated, how does the pressure look, how much is the mask leak. We get a lot of information. So following up with physicians is important to analyze the data here. So we download them every 6 months and we talk to the parents and there is a positive feedback. The insurance companies, you cannot lie them. If you don't use the machine for 3 days, use means for 70% of the night, or the nights, for more than 4 hours per night. At least 4 hours. If you don't use that, the insurance will take away the machine. So I cannot write a letter that he's using it because the machine will give you the data that he's not using it. So, and sometimes you can extend it by following up, but it's hard if you don't use it, they take away the machine. So I think we talked about the sleep, importance of sleep problems in teenagers, babies, and also we talked about sleep apnea, central sleep apnea, hearing malformation. We talked about restlessness and periodic moments of sleep, and we also talked about CPAP and BiPAP. So, as you see, the sleep medicine has evolved itself as a specialty. It's considered one of the newer specialties in the last decade. There's a lot of understanding about sleep now. We are in a better situation to treat, identify and treat the problems, and there are a lot of gadgets and gizmos available to treat these complex breathing issues. So I think even though you may have it or not, asking proper questions, screening them, and if the screen is positive, considering sleep studies, if the screen is positive, to rule it or rule out sleep disorders, is very important in treatment of this patient. Thank you.
Really, unfortunately, fall under research still, but it's coming. Actually, Massachusetts is a big leader, and Connecticut is behind Massachusetts, but we'll get into what we're trying to do. My kids are older now, but they probably watched this movie about 100 times if we watch it once. But the whole message is right there. There's no place like home. But that's how your healthcare should be. Probably every one of us, myself included, and I have a lot of physician friends that I holler at and say, it takes you 2 days to get back to us or something. Healthcare right now doesn't feel like a home, and that's part of it. You should be able to call one person up, a contact person, and it usually isn't going to be the physician. You don't want them to be the physician, but a care coordinator, and they'll take care of it. And there's a national certification to be a real certified medical home. You have to take care of that patient that same day. That's a culture change to our world. When you call up, we have one of our clinics. You call up, you got 6 months to wait to get to be seen. That world they're trying to change that world. They have to do it economically, with incentives. but I think it's coming. The push is to have it coming. But the whole concept of the medical home, it should be, who feels that comfortable with their medical home network now? I don't. I'm not even sure who I would begin to call with. And especially when you have a child with spina bifida, they usually get, I don't want to say lost, but they're seen more often in a specialist, a highly specialized clinic, whether it's the surgeon, neurology, your highly specialized world. And that world is a specialist world. It should be, the medical home really should be in the primary care setting, which is looking at you as a totality person, not just say you have spina bifida, you have muscular dystrophy, or you have anything. You know, it gets you out of that specialty world. In the primary care clinics, your primary care office should be the center of the medical home. Hesitating a little bit because hospital for special care, we're trying to be a medical home for spina bifida, children with sickle cell disease, children with muscular dystrophy. We're going to build what they're calling a specialized medical home for each of these. But in reality, you have, I don't want to say it's a minor, it's your major problem, but the rest of your world is very similar. You have to negotiate the school system. You have to negotiate the whole healthcare network. You have to negotiate your community. You have to negotiate transportation. So if you think about it, anybody with a chronic condition, they have more commonality problems than they do have that one condition that they have that puts them in that world. So we're trying to think creatively at Hospital for Special Care how to tackle that. It's not as hard. It's easier because, again, we have more commonalities of working with the school systems, working with transportation systems, working with public health departments. So that in a general nutshell. So if you have that one take-home message, and you should have a relationship with a care coordinator that you feel like it's your sister, your brother, your mother, they're taking care of business. And right now, you can find those places. They're around, and they're around in Massachusetts. And you can ask why they certified. Okay. You don't have to, but if they're even using the term medical home, it means they're in that world, that concept of true care coordination. And they're buying into that. Sometimes some places you go, they don't want to give you all this information. It's crazy. You should have access to your medical records. All right, so I'm going to just define it. I kind of defined it. All you remember is that there's some fancy definitions that people write about what a medical home is. We'll go into it. Why do you need it? Care for it for peace of mind. Not just peace of mind, but it truly does need to be coordinated. So, the Department of Public Health in Connecticut, the way we're pulling it off right now of medical home building is because of grants. That's why it comes under research. But we have a couple of really big grants from the Connecticut Department of Public Health to give you manpower. It doesn't go, you can't accomplish this type of communication or care coordinator to have that kind of time, or to put a hold in. Basically, to have access, we have to say schedule our clinics such that there's openings. Even though, right now, if you talk to a clinic, they're booked. That's why they're booked 6 months ahead of time. Just as bad as going to your dentist. You know, if you miss your appointment, you're 6 months waiting again. But that's because of money. They got to book everybody up, and then if you miss it. But with this system, they have to schedule openings. So if you happen to call Tuesday morning in the clinic day and say, I'm sick, I need such and such, there's going to be openings that they'll say, come on in 2 hours. So they have to schedule that in. And right now, they can't kind of bill and compensate for that, but we do it by grants. And the Connecticut Department of Public Health has been really, really good. They happen to be, unfortunately, disease-specific, autism and sickle cell disease, and political pressure nonsense. But the concept that everybody benefits because it develops a culture for that mentality. I want to give a little history. Well, let me see if I can figure out the point. I'm really bad at this stuff. I guess there's a pointer here, but I don't know. Oh. You young people in the audience. I'll say that the clicker doesn't work, but I probably really don't know how. Let's go. Our journey to Oz and back. I wanted to give a little history, at least in Connecticut, and where we were. We did have medical homes. We had those comprehensive clinics. And it really was the economic trend about 20 years ago when you're my age. You saw it coming and you shudder, and then you're forced into it. And then, it's getting better, though. And maybe some gaps and challenges. And every town is going to be different. You have to know your community. You may want to travel to a different site. The term started medical home. And then they found out it's great, all the physicians and the nurses and everybody would understand it. But what was really missing, and that would be great, but if the public, if you guys don't buy in, it's not a medical home. Now the term you'll hear and you should use if you want to talk to your physicians about it, and you should, patient-centered medical home, because it puts you in control, and you need that. You're preaching patient advocacy, all right? And you do need to take charge. You're running your family. Think of it as healthcare is your family. So it's patient-centered medical home. Process comprehensive primary care, community-based programs. The consumers are active and equal participants. Actually, in our grants, that's essential. And the Department of Public Health absolutely is buying into this and says we need to use that. We need to make sure any decisions, any committees that we have family members involved. What do you need? How do we do this properly? Empower the patient, be self-advocate. We have a mentorship program with children with special needs, all different special needs, and our biggest aspect of that is to empower the kids to be self-advocates. We have several young ladies here that are giving some thoughts I think after mine. And we're raising them, if you say, in our medical home to, at a young age, to get in their minds that they self-advocate, not just in healthcare, at school. When you hop on a bus, to have that self-confidence, self-advocate. You don't have to be obnoxious to do it. Just know what your rights are and build that confidence up. And we as parents and guardians should feel the same way. And the physicians should be accepting this. And if they're not, go like if somebody you're shopping for the best sale in town. It may sound crazy to you, but that's how you should look at it. This physician is not buying into this type of mentality. Then evaluate that situation. Because they're behind the times. It's upon everybody right now, national. All right. If they don't know, say if you're dissatisfied with getting information or appointments, don't be afraid to make some calls. You don't have to say, I'm getting out of here. They may be the best people in town, But don't be afraid. I'll use the term shop around because it's time. especially in Massachusetts, but even in Connecticut. Actually, the grants we have, I run around the state of Connecticut to physicians and educating them about medical home. Not just me, other people do too. So it is time. But the government, everybody's trying to figure out how do we pay for all this? I know everybody, half the Congress wants to cut off the medical care budget and stuff, but it's hard to find the money, but it needs to be found. So, and this is a nice definition. If you really are into the internet and you go and Google medical home, you find stuff. These kinds of statements, so I'm trying to put a point there. It's comprehensive care. They should have a network. If you're spending time mostly with a specialist, you have to be at a time when it's surgeons. I have a lot of surgeons in their offices, and they'll tell you their offices aren't geared to coordinate. They're geared to do that specific task. You have to be careful in that sense and see how well they can coordinate. Your primary care is that you can coordinate the rest of the care other than this particular era of surgeries. Comprehensive, continuous, coordinated, compassionate, culturally sensitive, speaking different languages. I mean, we're under the gun with the Department of Public Health. We better have in Britain, I think we need 4 languages and everything written in 4 languages and have translators. And you know, the right, a very large Hispanic population. I was at the University Hospital just the other day, and I happened to be walking in, and a patient came in the wrong entrance who was Hispanic with a little child. And actually, she was just going to the dental clinic. And it took me 2 hours to find him a Hispanic translator. It was at the University Hospital. It's crazy out there. I was really angry. But be sensitive to that stuff. We need it. They're at fault. Money's no excuse anymore. And patient and family centered. You have to be part of the team. I can't remember if I have a slide on that, but you're part of the healthcare team. Active and participant in the healthcare team. And if you don't feel that way, try to advocate for it. And that's when we all run away from your doctors. You may love them, and that's fine. Above all else, you need confidence in that, in your health care. All right. But be thinking along these lines. Ask them if they're that good. Then if you have confidence in them, then they must be pretty good. So they're doing something right, and they're making you feel good, and that's the top of the line. But ask them why they're not. Should you have a primary care physician that you know as well that's really coordinating all aspects? And think ahead. If your child's 2 years old, you got to be thinking when they're 10 years old, the transition care. We'll get into a little of that. Please, I'm talking too much already, not one question. Don't be afraid to interrupt. Any questions? I know this isn't rocket science and you don't really need to take notes, and we can get you a copy of this. I meant to print out some copies if you wanted, but I didn't think there was too much rocket science on this. It's a concept. The whole purpose of talking is to get you in this mode of thinking this way. You need this collaboration team. Keep thinking I have it. This is showing my age now. Let me see. My students would be giving me a hard time. I've been giving my students a hard time. All right. Primary care provider. We lose track. If you have a child with special needs, that primary care doc takes a back seat because you have other learning issues. So it's harder to keep that balance with the primary care physician in that office. But routinely, they would be the best equipped to do it. Also, a hospital like Hospital for Special Care is probably better, I don't even say properly, it's better than the surgeons. Any of the specialists, they're not The offices aren't geared, the staff's not geared to truly coordinate too well. If they are doing a great job at that point, keep them because they're special. Okay? They're doing a great job. But you should never lose contact with the primary care. You should become comfortable with those people. The medical specialists probably spend more time. I know in sickle cell disease, in the state of Connecticut, every child is either at the Children's Hospital in Hartford or at Yale, which is 2 comprehensive sickle cell centers. So they're just localized, every kid is in those 2 centers. And they have big transition programs, and because of the grant, it really truly is care coordinated with their PCPs. We really fight for that hard. Behavior health care providers, and I started because that can be a big problem. It's not a big problem, it's a big necessity, but when it comes to access to medical records, mental health records aren't even accessible to the other physicians unless you sign consent. So it's complicated, this HIPAA and what you can share with information. So it becomes a little problem. Not necessarily a problem. It could be a problem if you're not aware of how to just get over it. And as long as you want to release, you have the right to not release that information even to another physician. Okay? But if you want that information shared with your physician in the school system, then you just sign it. Parents and family members, community agencies. We push at hospital for special care to the community. It's a big, big aspect of your world. How do you or your child navigate the community? Especially as they become teenagers, hop a bus, they need to drive a car to get anywhere. And what services are available there that can help you? So the community is probably, we published a paper about our concept, and I don't think I'm out of the line. The community, education system, and healthcare have to be synchronized. Because our goal is independent living for every child, every person, and to get them to establish independence. And if you don't have, you could have the best health care in the world. If the education system isn't matching that, and if they don't understand how to navigate the community they're in, then they're falling behind. They're going correctly or whatever. But they have to be synchronized as far as purpose. And as best you can, we're being idealistic about it, but you have to think to be in those 3 worlds. The community that you're living in, the services that you can access there, the education system, and healthcare. And they all should know what's going on. Every one of them should know what's going on with the child's development. Oh, my goodness. I don't really like to look at my slide, only in case I forget something. Proactive medical care coordination. Communication. Proactive too is another key word. Try to stay ahead, not be reactionary. I mean, you have to be reactionary at times, but try to think proactive. And the whole healthcare team should be keeping you up on that. Oh, so this is Obama's presidency. You can knock it or not knock it, but they're really pushing this medical home, and they want everybody to be certified so that this is the only way they can get insurance to reimburse, drive the economic side of things so that you don't have to really force it by law. Enhance access and continuity. I keep going to my computer. I apologize. I'm going backwards. Yes, I can. I'm getting old. There's a little bit of dementia setting in here. My students let me know that. Enhance access and continuity. We sit every Tuesday at the hospital for 2 hours, 11 to 1. The chief operating officers, how are we going to do this? How can we financially do this? If you call up any of the clinics and say, you need to get in and see you, we're shooting for 24 hours, so maybe the next day, without going bankrupt, right? But it's highly important. And we all say, have to be able, we need to do this. We just have to work it out from a business perspective. How can we get office and after hours availability? This is where EMR, electronic medical records, can really help. All right, we're doing our EMR over and stuff, and you could be able to send an email at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's going to set up an alarm with our staff 24 hours a day. With one person is going to find your care coordinator and say, what are we going to do? We're going to respond to this person. And we have to do it to be, and you have to prove we're going to get inspected by the certifiers of this national committee. We're going to inspect you and monitor you to see that you do that. And they're committed at the hospital to do that. Anybody who has a certified, so if somebody says they have a certified medical home, they have that service. Boy, I'll tell you how I respect that group. We only have 2 in Connecticut that do that now. I think that's a little ahead of us. Plan to manage care. Provide self-care, community support, self-advocacy. In the clinic, they have to teach you how to do that. Track and coordinate care. We have to show improvement. The hospital is going to show that they're actually doing this to be certified. So it's a big commitment. Big commitment. If somebody's advertising now in your neighborhoods and in your communities that they're a certified medical home, I would take notice. I would really take notice and give them a lot of credit right now. No, I'm franchise president. Oh, why do we need a patient-centered medical home? There's quotes. You know, there's a big study by the Department of Health and Human Services in 2010. All children with special health care needs will receive regular, ongoing, comprehensive care in a medical home. You think you'd hear about that in 2010, right? That's because there's no money really behind the classic government thing. But they recognize it. Absolutely necessary. That's not practicality, that's just the government. It's a crazy thing saying it. But you know, in the political world, you need that type of statement. The benefits, there's now publications out there, literature for people who've had medical homes for years, showing that they have fewer unmet medical needs. The data you need to go argue to your politicians. This is why Connecticut Department of Public Health is giving people money to do this. All right, the pressure's on them now that there's benefit, this type of thing, financial benefit. They respond to financial benefit. And we had to give them data that one group of kids that we have, $20 million a year for 100 kids because they have to go to the emergency department. All right, this is what the government, when you play politics, you have to go and say, we can save you half of that money just if they call us up. Call that care coordinator up, and you're not going to send it to an ED, the emergency department, which is tremendously expensive. It really doesn't meet their needs. They save their lives, but they don't need to be there. So there's tremendous health care cost benefits. There's medical home advisory councils, a little more geared towards Connecticut. There's a lot of, the state has put a lot of partners together to try to think this through. Oh, what should we be doing specifically, let's say, for Spina Bifida? I happen to be on the board of the Spina Bifida Association of Connecticut. Presidents here in the audience too. You have to build partners. You have to build the right partnerships. Department of Public Health. They know us now. We go there. They know what we're talking about. They trust you. Build the trust just like you have to build a relationship with your doctor or your children. You have to build a rapport with the educators. Probably many of you have IEPs in the school systems. Some of the school systems are great. In Connecticut, they vary tremendously what services they can offer. Also, they may tell you one thing, but the law is they have to provide you what you need. We have a lot of educational sessions about your rights as a parent, what the demands, and what the school systems have to do for your child, depending on the recommendations from the physicians and the clinics that they're going to. That's a big issue in Connecticut, everywhere. You have to campaign, we don't have to get into that. A big aspect of what we're focused on is transition programs, career building. My last slide is our overall concept. We'll spend some time on that. But the schools have to get your child ready for a career. The career that they want, not just any job. Teach you how to patient advocate for yourself, how to navigate the system, how to fight for bills. We've written several bills in Connecticut, and you can write them. Okay, the groups can do it. We didn't do it for spina bifida yet. We talked about it. We've written several bills for sickle cell disease groups, and some got passed, some didn't. You don't want to say it's a game. Again, we have to understand where the money's coming from. One of the things we push is individualized healthcare plans, especially in our electronic era. All you need, you can have all your healthcare records right here. All right? And we've done that for our kids with sickle cell disease. We've talked about it for spina bifida. The families go somewhere, especially for sickle cell. They have these crises. They need to go to emergency room. If their treatment is very specialized and specific. It involves a lot of morphine, the barbiturates than the emergency departments. If they're used to you at that hospital, you're all right. If you're at a different hospital, they'll never give you the meds they need. You walk in, put electronic medical records right here. You don't need them all for your patients, let's say, but you can be here. And they're encrypted, coded, that you only have access to. You get to it, and they can tell you exactly what that child needs. All right? And you can put, we really preach the electronic records, put it on a passport, and you know what's in the passport. You know what's in there because you know why? You helped put in the information that you felt is necessary. And you upgrade it. And you can put in anytime you want in notes on there. And put it on there and send it by EMR, electronic medical records. And if you have a care coordinator at the other end, they can check it. They put it in. Right? They verify if they agree or not. But in this era, the beauty of this crazy electronic era is that you should be walking around with some of this stuff. There's no reason not to almost. Anybody. All right. And really, you don't know when an emergency is going to come up. Some of that is simple stuff. But you make it. You as a parent or a person, you make your own, your patient-centered. And you know exactly what's there. When you go in, you forget to tell the doc something. You can even go in before visits and you just put your notes on there and you say, plug it in. I get mad when I go to my primary care doctor now for my physicals. She's busy typing on the thing and I say, you can't, it's really troublesome if you're not looking at me. And they're typing on the computers. Anybody, is that happening? What happens? I give them help because I don't. But they're trapped in that world. So the individualized healthcare plans, I don't care individualized to that specific person. Don't underestimate it. Use the power of this crazy world of electronics. We really preach it. Again, it's expensive. It's expensive to upgrade it and keep it current. Oh, stakeholders, the chief partners. Over the years, we've been doing this for, probably 10 years now. Medical home isn't necessarily new. Everybody's known about it. They just can't work on it. You really do have to build a network. And you, even better than your physicians, know what that network needs to be. Whether it's the schools or a community center in your town that your child goes to, or would be beneficial to get to, and how do you get there? This is a little more playing the politics of this slide. We like to do a needs assessment. From a research standpoint, what does Connecticut need for sickle cell and the grants for sickle cell? We did a statewide needs assessment. It should be done for spina bifida. It should be done for all the diseases, communities that don't have access. It's costly, it's time, it took us a year. But it also helped us build partners and really say where the needs are. You can coordinate from that and say, blah, 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 this is a boring slide. Except for the last one. I didn't know politics. I think Carol had if you have a nice consultant, just find it. Somebody, one of the lobbyists, was going to one of the politicians and said, we got to get to these politicians. We got to pass a bill and a resolution in the state. We got to get to these politicians. So, well, you have to have an ice cream social. And I think he's joking. But in Connecticut, anyway, but the legislators are in, the legislators are there. You throw an ice cream social, and they're all there guzzling bowls of ice cream. I'm not exaggerating. It is the most effective thing. Boggles your mind. And we go there, give some talks. We do at least 1 or 2 a year for sickle cell disease every year, even if we don't have anything we're pushing. You're in their face, they see it, they talk to you, say, here's a problem. We have this problem, that problem. We need money, we need to do this. It's a world you need to understand. That maybe not you as parents, but you need to appreciate. The challenges, integration of healthcare into the families and the communities, it's huge. Education is always huge. We go around a lot of talks everywhere, from high schools to junior highs to anybody that'll listen. Growing partnerships, community resources. Unfortunately, money. Here's our paradigm that over the years we've really put together. We've been focused, not just us, but on the right, medical, dental care, pediatric care, adult care, and you think you're going to go to independent living. And now, for a lot of, like say, sickle cell disease, for kids who really wouldn't leave the pediatrician. In the pediatric hospital, they were a male with sickle cell disease not that many years ago would be expected to live just one. All right, so there wasn't a lot of need for adult care. And a lot of our chronic conditions weren't far off from that. All right, so we end up with this great health care. Now people are living longer, and believe it or not, in Connecticut, there was no place to go for adult care because the adult physicians didn't know how to take care of these kids because they didn't live that long. All right, I'm not exaggerating. This isn't some state off the stick somewhere. This is right here. We fought and built an adult care center with adult physicians that really know how to take care of adults with sickle cell big mentorship program for our younger kids, to show them how to navigate their communities, and where to go, how to grab a bus, how to grab a train. And believe it or not, at least in Connecticut, we've been unbelievably surprised how easy it is to hop on a train with wheelchairs and negotiate the whole East Coast, down at least from DC to Boston. And we are forcing our kids. We get them, take them on trips, hop a bus, public transportation, hop a train. I don't know in Massachusetts, Connecticut, it's hard to get a driver's license. They're so backlogged on hand controls. It is a job just to get on the schedule for the state to get a driver's license with hand controls. It's backlogged, but public transportation is huge. Understanding what the communities, some communities are great, some are really weak. And if you go to the community people, they just say, well, we didn't know you needed such and such, and they'll listen. So our whole initiative at Hospital for Special Care is based right now on balancing these worlds. And again, the politicians really control the community services that are there for your local politicians. We make a huge effort to get to know the local politicians as well as the state politicians. If you really want to make some change, you have to kind of get in there. You as parents and adults have to get in there, and you gotta at least understand it. But for our kids, we have to build that culture right in the beginning. This is condensed. We need to really start right at birth and get in the mindset of this culture. Control is there. Is it difficult? Absolutely. Is it frustrating? Absolutely. I can tell you I've been tremendous gains in Connecticut over the last 10 years. The schools, believe it or not, have been very receptive, extremely receptive. You get into schools, again, once you build that partnership and relationship with the schools, we just met within the Brit school system, one of our biggest school systems in Connecticut. They want to partner and do anything they can do to help, and vice versa, to work within that school system. And you need that. And they're all about career building. They don't want to just educate kids out. They want to get them career building. I can ramble forever, but I'll stop. But medical home is nice. You want to develop a medical care system, including your community and education system. And I would think of your medical home with those partners. They got to be included. Your passport should include information to schools, the IEP, but you just sleep. Only about 4 of you fell asleep. That's all right.